Welcome to Mind and Your Business with me, Monie Wilder, the podcast I wish I would have had when I started my career. As a mom and top producing real estate agent with close to 1,000 homes sold in under 8 years, I'll be diving into the mindset and strategies of how to create your business so that it authentically complements your life. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to MYB with Monie. I'm so glad that you're back, and I'm really excited to have this conversation today. Myranda is back. If you listened to the last episode, you got a feel of her flavor. And I realized that she has a really unique and interesting and helpful overall story. So I wanted to have her share, and this kind of falls more in the mindset part of this show. This show is meant to be something where if you're a business owner trying to build a business or want to start a business or whatever it is, just things that I have worked on with my own mindset and with other people and other things I hear people out there kicking ass are doing. That's what this show's about, is just compiling that information and getting it in front of you so that you can make of it what you will. So Myranda's story is one that kind of pops in my head every so often. Whenever I am encountering something that feels like, this is a really bad situation. She's a person who I admire a lot because she's been through some real shit and some things that are not good. And I'll let her talk, but her kind of bottom line or where she is now is that she's in a way better place than she was. And so she's able to take this experience and all these things that you're going to hear about and turn them into actually a better life than before in many ways. So Myranda, welcome back.
Thanks.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for being a part of this. Thanks for being willing to share what happened, your story. So if you wouldn't mind, just in case people didn't listen to the last episode, would you mind just sharing who you are, how we know each other, and then let's just hear all about you.
Okay. My name is Myranda. Like she said, I feel like I always
Myranda
need to start
Shields.
with
She has
that.
the last name. It's Shields.
Yeah, it's Shields. I know Monie because we are real estate agents. We actually worked on her very first deal together. It was one of my worst deals of my career. But, and then we were just kind of sold around the same area. So she was high producing, I was high producing. So we'd run into each other. I'd show her listings, whatever, we'd communicate every now and then. So that is how, and I always admired you so much on your social media and stuff, cause you're just such a badass. And at that point in my career, so I had, I built my own real estate business. I worked 90 bazillion hours. But I always felt a whole bunch of pressure to be who everybody else wanted me to be, right? I would always talk about it. Now I have a lot of tattoos. I would have never gotten tattoos then. I have my nose pierced. I wanted to pierce my nose since I was 18, but I didn't do it because I was I don't want somebody to, be oh, look at this harlot. She's got her nose pierced.
Look at this.
Is that the
slut.
right word? Yeah, I know. What is she doing? I'm not leaving my husband alone with her at a home inspection, running around with a hole in her nose.
She's unpredictable.
Right. Exactly. So, and you were always so authentic, right? You'd cuss and say all the things and I would always live vicariously through you and be man, if I could redo my life, then I would for sure not start it out being oh, look at me. I've got the same hair as everybody else and I wear 3/4 length sleeves all the time. So that way nobody gets offended if they don't like elbows. I really used to do that. It's I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know what religion the people are that I'm meeting that called me off Zillow. I don't want to show up and, they think that you shouldn't see biceps and all of a sudden they don't want to work with me and me showing my arms just cost me $10,000.
1-star rating.
Exactly.
Showed her bicep.
Right. Nobody wants to see that. Put your biceps away.
So tell us about your business. When we did our deal together, and I think maybe we did a few, but when we did our deals together, what did your business look like?
So, I represented a lot of buyers and sellers. I got the majority of my business from reviews online. I had a real strong presence. And I had a person that helped me out with my transactions, who like saved my whole life 90 million times. And I love you, Carrie, if you are listening to this. So it was basically me and Carrie. And then I had another agent that was a showing agent kind of later, in my career before my injury. But that is how it went. And I ran, I handled all the communications about what showings we were going on. I showed all the houses every weekend. I would, lock boxes opened at 8. I would plan on leaving my house at 7 a.m. and lock boxes closed at 9. And I would get home around 10 o'clock. I used to always say, like, I stay in the Phoenix metro area, but I drive the same distance as if I went to LA and back every weekend. So I would be out doing that. I had Wi-Fi in my car. I would work at QT and eat like egg rolls inside the bag so it didn't get my hands messy or greasy, and tie the bag in a knot and stick it in my thing. And I was a road warrior.
How many deals, like at your peak, how many deals in a year were you doing? Basically as a single, if we're being honest, you're a single agent. You're the producer. You got some support people. So what was your production like?
I think my best year was like 80 deals.
Okay. So that's a lot.
Yeah. Which is a lot to do. Like,
yeah,
just by myself. Like, honestly, like the place that I'm at now, I look back and I'm like, I do not even know how I like multitasked. Some days I would count how many text conversations I was in that day, and it'd be like over 100.
Yeah.
Like, I have literally talked to over 100 people
like today
about whatever. Yeah. And now I'll look at my phone and be like, no one's texted me for like 4 hours. This is amazing.
Yeah. I'd be like, my internet's not working. My phone's not working. Does that happen?
Yeah.
Okay. So, doing 80 deals, what kind of money is that? How was you don't have to say exactly, but like what was your money situation with that?
At the time, prices for houses were a lot lower. But so I was probably like in the $500,000 range.
Okay. So like, I feel like a lot of agents listening, especially agents, listening, would be like, yeah, hell yeah, that would be awesome. I would love that. That'd be the money I need. That would be, I love being busy, blah, 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 blah. So how was that for you though? Like, on the outside, those of us looking at you are like, get it, great, awesome. You must be loving it.
Right.
But like, what was that like for you?
It was really hard personally. Like, my family life, I know I talked about like cooking on my last thing. That's like, yeah, I never cook. Like, I can run a fucking awesome business. I can solve your business problems. I'm good at dealing with high stress situations, not being emotional. Like, I'm fucking great at business. Mm-hmm. Like, it made me not be great at like any kind of personal life things. Right. So I was just always like that. Like, from the time I graduated in college, I interned at a mortgage company my senior year at ASU as a loan processor. And I just like got into this like business mindset, because I feel like there's like a switch that kind of happens in your head when you realize how to make money. Like, everybody that makes a lot of money that I talk to about making money, it's like, oh no, money's easy. Yeah. Like, you just need to make the money. Just like do the thing to make the money. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like that switch kind of flipped in my head at an early age, my very early 20s. I don't even know if I was like 21 yet. And, I realized that, and then that was just all that drove me. So probably when other people were like, I don't know, having romantic relationships or doing things that was not just like business related, I was just always real business. And people would say that to me. It's so funny looking back, because people would say to me like, oh, Miranda's always business. You're just always business. You never relax. And I would be sitting there like, I'm fucking relaxed. What is your problem? Like, I am not business. I am very friendly. Mm-hmm. Everybody, like, look at my 5-star reviews. I am fucking friendly. I am relaxed.
I'm not showing my biceps.
Right, exactly. But now I'm like, no, yeah, for sure. I was never relaxed.
So why do you think that switch flipped in you so early? That, I got to get it. I'm out. I'm doing this.
I think it's just because I was lucky enough to work with one of my best friends and a great mentor, Jason. I'll shout you out if you're listening. But so I worked with him, and there are a lot of things, like the intricate details about what you need to do to make money, right? Like how to problem solve, how to save things, different things to look at.
A lot of the stuff we're going to go in really in in depth on this show and get into. Yeah.
So a lot of times those things, like, people don't necessarily share that with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you go get your first job out of college, you're interning, the guy that runs that branch isn't like, here, let me show you my P&L. This is how this worked. This is how that worked. We can do this. This is what we're spending on this advertising. I'm going to make this out of here. Like, oh, you want a raise? Here, why don't you come sit down and we can talk about your raise and what that would mean for the branch. And I need this additional productivity out of you in order to make up for that, you know, whatever. So I think it's just, I was lucky enough to learn those things and to see them in action and to also have it be like, I saw him being successful. Like, I saw his family. I was there at like the gatherings. I saw him go from a crappy car to a nice car. And it just made it be like, oh, this is actually reachable. Yeah. And then when you start running in those circles, it's like, oh yeah, because everybody around me makes like 10 grand a month. Like, they're not better than me. I can make 10 grand a month. I remember that was my number like forever. Like, if I could just make 10 grand a month, I would have no life problems.
I remember then that was my number.
You know, it was like,
I don't know why 10
5
grand,
figures in 1 month, like $90 million. Yeah. I would leave that day and go to Disneyland, $10,000 a month. And then it was like, I was at a point in my life where I was like, if I don't make $10,000 a week, I don't know how I'm going to pay for all this shit. Yeah. You know,
how am I going to buy food?
Right.
It was only 40 grand a month.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. That's the thing about money.
Right.
You know, that's a part of this. But you know, I asked that question and I want to clarify, you know, there's making 10 grand a month. And then I'm doing 80 deals a year. I'm at Quick Trip eating egg rolls. I'm starting at 8 a.m. or I'm starting at 7 a.m. because Lockbox is open at 8 and I'm out until 9 p.m. every day. I feel like what you're describing is a little more than like, oh, someone taught me. I saw it was easy. Right. So what I'm really asking you is like, what was behind that drive? Like, why were you doing that?
I honestly, I don't know. Like, I just wanted to be like the biggest, the best. Like, it was never, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have goals. Like, I wanted $100,000 a month. Mm-hmm. You know, I had $100,000 a month. And then it was like, well, if I had $100,000 a month, maybe I could have $150,000 a month. Like, I remember,
like, it's always a moving target, right? As soon as you reach it now, it's not good enough anymore.
Yeah. Like, I remember I was talking to my cousin in my laundry room and somebody had said something about how like there's like the top 1%, right? Like the, whatever.
All these fake lists.
Oh, no, not that. But like the top 1% of income earners, how it's like the negative connotation with being in like the top 1%ers. Oh, you know what I'm talking about?
The 99. Was that the 99%?
Yeah, like we're the 99%.
Yeah,
like
and the
that
1%ers.
Kind of thing.
If you're a 1%er, you're worse. You're an evil devil. Yeah.
Something along those lines. Well, yeah, somebody had said something about that. And then I like did the math and was like, what? I'm not in the top 1%.
You're all hurt.
Yeah. Like, I was like, what the fuck? And it was 2015 because I had just had my son and we were in my laundry room and I was doing laundry and she was in college and she had said something about that. And I was like, well, how much is that? And it was like, oh, I don't know, 432,000 or whatever the number was. And I like looked at my numbers for that year and I was like, all right, I'm not going to be able to do that this year, but like next year, 2016. I'm like, write it down. 2016, I'm going to do that. I can do that.
Just competitive.
Yeah. And then I did do it in 2016 and I was like, boom.
How was that though?
It was stressful. It wasn't, but I was like, haha, but that
reached a goal.
Yeah. I reached a goal. And that was what I had just tied every bit of success, every piece of happiness, whatever was like, if I wasn't productive, like I was always super efficient. Like if I, if I wasn't going to waste time doing things, like if I knew that I could be doing a dollar producing activity,
I'd be doing the dollar producing.
I didn't watch TV. I didn't do that. Like, why am I going to,
Yeah. Yeah. I have been on that. I know exactly what that is. I have that same thing. I still will catch myself falling into that mode. And I sometimes now I have enough control where I can kind of turn it on and turn it off. Like if I turn it on, I know I'm going to turn it on for a short amount of time to get some shit done. Right. And then I'm going to turn it off because, and you'll talk more about your story, but like it becomes a miserable state to be in because it's a continuously moving target. You never are going to be there. You never get to arrive. You're
Right.
always, reaching, and there's always negativity around it. It's always like, well, fuck that. That wasn't good enough, because now, like, as soon as you do something, someone walks past you who did more. And now
Right.
you're like, well, I'm the fucking worst because, and then
Right.
seconds ago you were the best. Right. So
Right.
it's this roller coaster of emotions, whatever. But let's talk about like what changed.
Okay. So I had started having some health issues, and at that point in time, I was working like a ton, and my son had a lot of health problems. So I had a lot of added, like, I also wasn't sleeping,
Sure.
so I was just like awake basically for 16 straight months working and whatever. It was quite brutal. And then I went in for a really simple procedure. There was an accident during the procedure, and when I woke up, I couldn't move my leg. And I ended up having a big blood clot, and, it did resolve. I still have a lot of nerve damage and stuff like that, but it was like very rough when I first woke up, because I ran my whole business like by myself,
Right.
and when I was also the sole breadwinner in the family,
Right.
so I was responsible for all the bills we had, like advertising contracts. I'd actually, like, I think the month before my injury had just started doing TV commercials. I had like digital billboards. Like, I had just, taken
Doubled
on
down
all these
on your costs and expenses.
Yeah, all these things that I needed to keep up with. And it was supposed to be such a quick procedure that I didn't even tell anybody I was getting it.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't tell any of my clients. I was like, we're just going to, punt anybody that needs me that day or the next day. We're just going to say, oh, I'm in meetings. Yeah, I'm in an appointment. What can I help you with? I'll be fine. And then I ended up not being fine. So it really was quite the scramble to like figure out how I could adapt. And at first I was like still trying to work. I remember I went to a listing appointment and I had a walker because I like couldn't walk. I still had like a drain in my stomach that I was like hiding.
Shit.
But I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do if I can't work. And I, in my head, because I was always so business minded, it's like that listing appointment that I was going on that day was going to pay me in 6 months. So that was more my concern, was like, what am I going to do in 6 months? Because we kept thinking like it was going to resolve and I was just going to be fine, which ended up not being the case. But, so it was very stressful in that, to be in the condition I was in. I had never had like any kind of major problems like that before. And all of a sudden it was like, I couldn't even sit up. I couldn't get out of bed by myself.
Right.
I was just, pissed off, eating a grilled cheese off my chest, drinking apple juice through a straw. Like, it was miserable. So,
and it resulted now in you being in a wheelchair.
Right. Yeah. So I can walk like short distances, normally with a cane, but if I go anywhere, any kind of distance, then I do need a wheelchair. It'll take me like a good hour to walk 20 feet.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Or we have to worry about someone bumping into you and knocking you down.
Knocking me over.
Just brushing into you.
Right. Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So I remember that we went to lunch so we had known each other, right? And I, knew you as I knew you. And then all of a sudden we go to lunch and you show up in a wheelchair and I'm like, what the fuck is this? What happened? You're like, oh, my leg doesn't work anymore. And I'm like, excuse me. And you told me the whole story. But you had made a shift, because so talk about that. We've got a little bit of time left. So talk about, how that injury, what did it result in now? Like, what's your life like now?
So that injury, where it was awful, it forced me to make a lot of changes and focus on what's really important to me. And I think that is like the biggest thing of it, is it made me realize, like, I didn't need to work 9,000 hours. I was so fortunate to, like I said, Carrie, she carried the business essentially, because there was a long time, like, I didn't tell people that it happened because, again, we thought I was going to be fine. So if somebody asked like, oh, well, I need you to be the one to go do this thing, I would just be like, actually, I just had knee surgery. Yeah. So I'm not going to be able to make it, whatever. And then when it got to a point where it was like, okay, this is more permanent, I had to do a lot of soul searching, and I knew, and I mean, it's been a real difficult journey for me to like step back because I knew that so much of my personality and so much of what I was proud of, like whatever, stemmed from my success. You know, like I felt like I had a very good resume. People wanted to work with me. If I said I was going to do a thing, I did that thing. Like I get shit done. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, actually, I can't take the trash out. Is there like a person I could pay to do that, please? Which there is. So it was really difficult for me to kind of go through and say like, okay, what is important? So I went and I worked at a lender friend of mine for a while, and I had to get like a real job, which it was a great job. Like it was a great job, but it was the first time that I had worked for anybody else in a very long time. And that was difficult for me to be like,
'cause you've been running the show.
Right.
It's very well, very successful.
Yeah.
It's not like you scratched out trying to start. You had a great business and now all of a sudden you're a part of someone else's thing.
Right. Yeah. Like somebody that I saw as a peer. Yeah. That was the other thing. It's like, oh, like we're on the same level, but now it's like, okay, you need to clock into work.
Go get me coffee. Fuck you. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like that. And I mean, luckily, I've also been fortunate. Everybody that, since I've like made this shift and had to like work for other people. Yeah. Everybody that I've worked with is very like respectful and awesome. And they know that like, I'm like working with you. You know, it's not like.
You don't have to micromanage or make it weird. It's like, this is what you're good at. This is what I'm good at. Like you do that thing, I'll do this thing. So
I've been really fortunate that I've been able to do that. But at first it was a tough pill for me to swallow, like not being like, oh, hey, I run this place. So let's XYZ, this is what we're going to do. Be like, well, let me ask. I don't know. Okay. I'm waiting on someone else. Or I like do a thing like, oh, okay, here's this. I really like that. Like, no, I don't like that. Kick that back. Or, you know, it was, it was different to do that. And one thing that really helped me is I started doing, wheelchair sports, which I did. Like, you'll notice that's the recurring theme is like whenever a person thinks I can't do a thing, then I'm like, oh, I'm going to do that thing. So my sister actually said to me one day, if something like that happened to me, I'd be one of those people you see out there climbing mountains in a wheelchair, not sitting at home crying. And I was like,
is this while you were sitting at home crying?
Well, I mean, I spent some time sitting at home crying, right? Like,
okay, so it was an attack. I got it.
No, I mean, I wasn't like actively crying. She was just saying it to motivate me, like, honestly. Which, right, and it worked because I was like, "Fuck that! I can climb a mountain. I can do whatever you can do."
She triggered that, right? Yeah, anything you can do, I can do better.
Right? Yeah. So I went and I Googled wheelchair basketball. I'm like, I've seen that before. That exists in a place. It's probably in Phoenix. So I Googled that and I found it. And it was right when COVID was ending. So the gym was opening back up. And I went down there and was kind of like, real shy. Cause again, my whole, like, I just felt like my entire adult life was tied around
this other thing. Yeah.
Me being super successful. And now I'm going in here like to this place where they don't even know me. Yeah. Like, it's not like, oh, here's Myranda. She can solve a problem or whatever. I was just like, so it was super weird to be in like this new social circle where so my other social circle, so much was tied to accomplishments and money and whatever. At my gym, they don't give a shit. Yeah. They don't care if you have money. They don't care if you don't have money. Like, nobody talks about it. There are people I've known for years now that I don't even know what they do for a job. And I see them 3 days a week. Right. It's like, I don't know where they live. I don't know what they do for a job. Like,
it's not about that.
Right. Yeah, it's not. And so that whole thing was weird to me. And then, it was real hard. There's a huge learning curve, like having to learn how to use a wheelchair, like all these things. And,
but the thing that I wanted to bring up, that I wanted you to get to, and we're almost out of time, but I wanted you to talk about how, when we talked about this, you'd felt like this was what you really should have been doing the whole time. So talk about that part for us to kind of close it out.
Okay. So the accident was definitely a catalyst for me to make changes to make me way happier professionally. Like, honestly, like I like being a solid number 2, right? Like when you do something good, I'm proud of you. When you're up there and you're talking, I like smile like, look at Monie. She's so cute. Those chubby cheeks. I love her little straight, flat hair. My hair is always so wild. Her hair always looks so good. So I always, it's like, that is honestly probably the better role that I'm in because it's less stressful. I still have an element of, you know, I can do what I want to do. I can be successful. If I, you know, need extra money for something, I can hustle up a couple extra $1,000, like whatever. Like I'm still involved, but I feel needed. I feel, you know, like my input is valuable to people. I'm able to do the things that I'm good at. And I don't have that crazy amount of stress that I had before. And it's way better. Like I spend a lot more time with my kids now than I ever did. You know, I got injured when my son was like 3. So he always remembers me. He always says I have a broken leg. So he always remembers my bad leg. He doesn't remember me ever like walking around normally. But my daughter, her perspective of it is she never saw me before. Then I got hurt and then I was just been around all the time. So from her perspective, it was like worse before. Like, did we go on to Disneyland a lot?
Interesting.
Yes.
So for her, it was actually worse when she just never saw you. Didn't exist.
Right. Exactly. Wow. She's like the only thing, cause I would always, I'd call it Big Bed Friday where I would kick my husband out of our room and he would sleep in like the guest room and then the kids would sleep in our big bed. Right. And that was like, and that was pretty much the only time I saw them is I would try to get home by like 8:00. So they'd still be awake and we would do Big Bed Friday and we'd watch like a Disney movie or something in our bed. And that's pretty much the only thing she remembers is Big Bed Fridays. And, you know, but then I got hurt and now she sees me all the time and we hang out all the time. And, you know, I mean, I still work, there's still stuff, but it caused me to make a shift that I would have never made. I was in an unhappy marriage. I was never leaving that thing because, you know, leaving marriages is expensive. And pretty much every single thing that I did was driven by my bottom line. Right. So it's like I was just stuck. I would have never left. I would have just been with that guy and cried in my car in the driveway for eternity. The universe
literally was like, okay, she's uncomfortable. She's stressed. Her marriage sucks. We've stacked all these things. She's still not getting it. So like, let's fucking fuck her leg up. Right. You know, and then now, but you know, I'm laughing saying it and I'm not making light of it, but it's very, in my mind, it's just such a great story for like how things happen for you. Right. You know, and you like seeing you in real life and knowing you before and knowing you now and also just being around you and knowing that like you are truly, I feel like you are happier because you do, now you're in a better role professionally. Now you have time for your kids. Now you have time for your sports. Now you kind of have this fuller life and it's kind of scary to picture where you would be had that not happened. Right. Like, you know, mentally. So.
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, I'm sure I would have had like a shit ton more money, which, you know, is nice, but it's not the end all be all. And I'm way happier now.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing this story. We really appreciate it. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys got some value out of that. Bye.
Bye.